Friend of the show, Oscar-nominated actor Ray Fiennes. He was just in Conclave last year. Of course, we know him from films like the Harry Potter series, The English Patient, of course, Schindler's List. But he is starring in what is, it's funny, I feel like I say this a lot, but only because I don't talk often about the movies I don't like. 28 Years Later, one of my favorite films of the year.
Nice.
An absolutely brilliant horror film. It is the third film in the 28 series.
Okay.
2002, there was 28 Days Later, which really revolutionized the zombie genre, as it were. It really introduced this concept of what if they ran? What if the zombies were fast? What if they weren't just, what if they were really actively scary? A few years after that, we got 28 Weeks Later with Jeremy Renner and Idris Elba, and now we're getting 28 Years Later, opens in theaters, technically Friday, really tomorrow. A really, truly tremendous horror film that I would say you don't even really need to have seen the other ones. You just need to know there was a zombie outbreak, and this is 28 years after the zombie outbreak.
All right, now, have all of them followed the same? You explained to me the premise of 28 Days Later, where the guy, he's in a coma, wakes up 28 days later, and wow, the world is very, very different.
And it ended while he was in a coma.
And was that the same premise for 28 Weeks Later?
It's the same world. 28 weeks is new characters, 28 years is new characters, but there are reports. So this 28 years is actually going to be a trilogy. So it's going to be three different 28 years films. The next one comes out, and in fact, this one ends, spoiler alert, in a cliffhanger.
So it's 28 Years Later, 1, 2, and 3.
Basically,
kind of
yes.
Okay.
And the next one comes out in January, and Cillian Murphy is set to return for those.
So they're getting some big time talent.
Well,
like these are like method acting. You think of horror movie as like, the low grade, like almost pop sensation cast like the movie Scream.
Exactly
or
right.
But these are like Oscar winners.
Because you have to keep in mind, Cillian Murphy was not famous back in 2002 when that film came out, and there's that iconic scene of him wandering around in empty London. But I had the chance to chat with Ray Fiennes about 28 Years Later, and I always say that, one, it's a dream of mine to be in a horror film, but I also want to be killed in a horror. Like, I want to be completely wrapped. Like, if I'm in a slasher movie, come at me. I want a great memorable death. So I asked them, if you're in a zombie movie, I want a memorable death. Yeah, exactly. Oh, he sold it, man. I've always wanted to know, if you're in a zombie movie, before you know what's going to happen, before you crack open the script and find out the fate of your character, are you secretly hoping that you get that bite and get to have your crazy zombie moment, or do you just want to live to see the end? Here's what he said.
I've always thought if I were an actor, I would love a great zombie moment. So for both of you, before you ever crack open the script, before you know what's going to happen to your character, is there a part of you that secretly hopes that your character gets infected just so you can have a really great zombie moment?
I was kind of the opposite. I was thinking, oh boy, I hope I don't get into an infected.
No, I'm with Jodie. I didn't come at it from your perspective. I didn't want an infected moment. I wanted to be free of infection. But you see, once you've done that, then it's over. You're infected. But there's no nuance left after that.
No nuance left after that. I would like to believe, and granted, I have not seen every interview that he's done for this film. I'd like to believe that we have the sole Ray Fiennes zombie performance that exists on film, because he's up till now
but that's cool that he plays along. He played along nicely.
He's got it. For someone who is so known for being such like a great dramatic actor, 3-time Academy Award nominated actor, Schindler's List, English Patient. He's always got a very cheeky sense of humor, and that often is the case. I find oftentimes comedians tend to be a little bit more reserved, and the funniest guys tend to be the real serious actors.
That is so interesting you mentioned that, because I noticed you spoke with Mike Myers not long ago, and his on-screen persona is whatever character he embodies, whether it's like Wayne Campbell or Austin Powers, whatever, when you interview him, he just feels so introverted. He's an introvert.
A lot of them, they are. And do you remember a couple of weeks back we had Tia Carrere on the show?
Yes.
Who was with Mike Myers in Wayne's World, and I asked her about her favorite memory of shooting Wayne's World, and her answer was how reserved Mike and Dana Carvey were in between takes, whenever they would call cut and before the next action. A lot of times they would just kind of be very quiet or step off to themselves, and it's so funny because you think of these big bombastic, Wayne Campbell and Garth Algar, Austin Powers, or whatever the case may be, and the fact that like it's a turned on. One of the few actors that I ever interviewed that kept it on as much in person as he did on film was the late great Robin Williams.
Oh yes,
I've never always heard operating on 11 out of 10. Yeah.
Yes.
One of the all-time best.
That tracks. I don't think I've ever seen Robin Williams not.
Yeah. I mean, you saw clean scene clips at award shows and all kind of stuff. He was always willing to bring it. In fact, there's a famous story I was told by a fellow person who's done interviews far longer than I. He did interviews with Robin Williams for a movie called 1 Hour Photo, which is like this.
I remember that movie.
Scary.
I remember that movie.
And the studio had to come in and say, Robin, this is a serious drama. You need to kind of scale it. They had to have him pull it because he was just so. And they said people are going to be confused and think it's a comedy if you're doing interviews like you're Mrs. Doubtfire. So it's he's the exception to the rule.
Hurts my heart still.
He was one of the all-time greats, man. One of my favorite
to talk
interviews.
About Robin Williams.
One of the late greats. He lives on forever. I'm a big believer of that. There's a phrase about movie stars that they. They breathe their last breath before many people breathe their first, but they oftentimes, anytime a kid turns on Mrs. Doubtfire, Robin Williams lives again.
No, that's right. Yeah.